G'day, folks. Chris McLean back with yet another episode of the show. And in the studio today, I've got Brett from Beyond Intent. And Brett is someone who specializes in all things digital and has for a long time. He's consulted, designed, planned, built, and executed application design and development for companies all over the world. As co-chair of Mobile Monday, a global not-for-profit mobile community in South Africa, who's exposed to all the latest and greatest developments in the mobile space. He is now the owner of a digital solutions consultancy based in Sydney, Australia, called Beyond Intent. With over 20 years experience in digital marketing, Brett consults to companies, helping them answer their digital questions and solve their challenges, whether that be transformation or simply checking if their media or digital properties are working the way they should be. He's held the managing director role for a few full-service digital agencies where they built websites, games, apps, planned digital campaigns, and built both augmented and virtual reality executions. So, Brett, you haven't really done much. Not sure what we're going to talk about.
I knew that was my game, mate. Sounds like it. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, pleasure, man. As you say, that's a hell of a bio and a hell of an introduction. You've touched just about every aspect of digital and interactive over your time, by the sounds of it.
We always joke about it, Chris. I refer, one of my mates coined the phrase BBC, not in the TV production company, but born before computers. So I remember the dial-up modems and all those good things as well.
Yes, I was born analog as well. So I know all about C drives and hard drives and dial-up internet and all that stuff as well. So interesting to see how the world's evolved over that time, and
100%.
particularly into stuff, as you're saying, augmented reality and VR and that emerging tech space that's coming out. That was a space I enjoyed playing in myself, but it's not about me. Let's get into you. And before we sort of get into Beyond Intent, take us through where have you come from? You obviously started back in South Africa and you're now in Sydney, and you've evolved through many different agencies and all sorts of things. So give us the 2-minute version of
I'll give you the
who you are and where you've come from.
The 2-minute version. So correct. So I've been in Sydney now for 5 years. In fact, I'm about to get my citizenship, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
Oh, wow, awesome.
COVID put a bit of pain to the ceremonies, but we'll get there.
Yes.
Haircut first, and then we'll go to the ceremony. But from the agency point of view, I actually spent most of my career running up and down to America. I've seen 28 states, so probably more than most Americans have seen. Quite a different angle. Nice cat scratching post in the background. But anyway, so I was actually on a flight, and it's not a brag, and I'm not flexing, but I was on a flight from, where was it? From Grand Rapids, Michigan, down to Atlanta, and coming back from a Pearl Jam concert. And I was reading a full-page advert on how to send a text message. This was 2004, if I remember correctly. And I looked over to my wife and I said, if they don't know how to send a text message here, there's got to be gazillions of dollars to be made. We were already doing short message service campaigns. We were doing things like USSD, buying stuff with our mobile phones. And that's where it all started for me. The mobile phone became my obsession. You mentioned at the beginning, I sat on the co-chair of Mobile Monday. I've often joked in keynotes that the day it becomes legal to marry a phone, my wife is gone because I get a new one all the time. In fact, I'm playing with the new Pixel 6 and 6 Pro as we speak. I'll be doing a review on them shortly. So my whole tech journey, and coming from South Africa, where we didn't have fixed internet or reliable fixed internet, the mobile was always the thing that we used for connectivity. So everything I've done is really centered around mobile first. There was a period, I think, in the mid 2010s, 2012s, where mobile agencies were coming out, and we laughed at this, like we've been mobile forever. So very much 100% committed to digital. I do come from a creative agency background, but everything I do now it starts and ends with digital. And thankfully, we've dropped the mobile versus digital agency naming conventions. And the reason for that also is accountability. We can track and measure everything, so there's no gut. We do things based on the fact that we can report back on them, and we can show our clients the performance. And also if it doesn't perform, we can take a quick corrective action. So hopefully it gives you a quick overview of the journey to date.
Yeah, it's a super interesting journey. Let's say from, even though I founded my agency in 2002, and again, it was like digital and mobile was a little add-on over the side that you might consider if you had some budget left over. Fast forward to 2021, and it's mobile first and digital first. So it's really massively shifted. It's literally flipped on its head, sort of over that couple decade period. So it must have been super interesting to really be part of that from the nexus. I mean, 2004, doing sort of SMS marketing and mobile marketing, that was very, very early. We're talking flip phone, Nokia flip phones and that sort of thing.
We didn't even have those. So it's quite funny how life goes in full circles, because Alcatel, which is made by TCL, is one of my clients here in Australia.
Right.
And my first phone was an Alcatel HB100, and you had to hold it around with a little extended aerial, trying to find signal with a 2-hour battery life. We carried spare batteries that we could hot swap into them. But yeah, it was I did the first .mobi site in South Africa, or Africa probably. First AR experience. We were doing AR way before AR was cool. But the problem with tech is, and this has been a big frustration, being an agency side of it, if you put your agency cap back on, is we can sit and come up with the most amazing creative ideas, but there's not a lot of brands out there that actually have the balls to take the chance and be first. I've had a lot of agencies say to me, "That's great, come back to us when someone else has done it." I'm like, "Mate, I'm here to offer you the first shot at it. It's not the first anymore when someone else has done it."
It's that classic thing, is that everyone wants to be first, they don't want to go first.
Correct. So if I look at my frustrations in my journey, that's definitely one of them. We even did cigarette advertising when cigarette advertising was banned. Thankfully, there was a brand prepared to take a chance there, which was Camel. So we used augmented reality. There was no call to action. There was no advertising because you weren't allowed to do it. Just on the side of the pack, it said, "This is an augmented reality cigarette pack. Download our app." And that was it. And we had fun with that. So it's hard being in digital, and the accountability of digital as well. The fact that we can track everything. So but love it. I'm change for the world.
I can certainly relate to that, being in that emerging market, because we shifted, our agency sort of pivoted 2009, early 2010 into, as you said, like full-blown AR, VR, Coke cans, scanning with a phone, and some experience happened. And at that point, it was one of those things where we'd walk into a client and we'd be showing someone else's work and trying to, because there really wasn't. BMW had done like a car driving around, and a few big brands had done some test stuff, but there was nowhere near. I mean, talk about AR today, and everyone's done some version of it. But at that point, there was a couple of examples. So trying to sell that stuff is really interesting. I always found that an interesting aspect of how do you sell and proposition something that kind of doesn't exist yet. And that was kind of the position that we took with that agency. It was where we're selling stuff that does, and building stuff that doesn't exist yet. So how did you find that? How did you position this stuff early on with market leaders to get people to buy stuff that they can't go, "I understand a magazine ad and how that converts. What the hell's an AR campaign going to do for me?"
I think the simple answer to that question is we didn't, right? I mean, it's hard. That's 100% the truth. And I think the advice I'd give to your viewers is that the relationship with the client is probably the most important thing. When you, and a lot of people now obviously going into their own agencies. So there's a couple of things I think that help with success. One is do your time in a big shop. I hate the big shops, and I'm sorry for the big shops that are out there that are listening to this. But the big shops, unfortunately, they almost bully the clients, and they, wear this, we this. But when you spend your time in the big shop, this is the lesson, is you learn not what not to do. When you go into your own agency or you spin up something that's a bit more influential or experiential, if you've got clients, when you choose your clients, and I use that word as well quite carefully, I choose my clients. I don't pitch. I haven't pitched in years, and I'm not prepared to pitch. Pitching is soulless. It's frustrating, and a lot of the time, my clients come to me through referral, so therefore they should know what I do, and that's not arrogance. I mean, that's just I've paid my dues. But when you have a client that trusts you and is almost a friend, it's a lot easier to present stuff that's maybe a little bit more wacky and innovative. I've had a few campaigns where I've gone to the client and I've said to them, I really don't know if this is going to work. Now, that's not how you pitch a new campaign. But I'm like, I'm confident I can make it work. I just don't know how successful it's going to be with your customers. Want to take a chance. And, some do and some don't. We did something in the pharmaceutical industry, which is probably the most regulated industry you can get. And was very fortunate to even be nominated for a Digital Emmy Award for that. We went off to Cannes, didn't win, but it was cool to walk on the red carpet. But the point is that this brand was prepared to take that chance. They went so far out of their comfort zone and the norm of what you can and can't do in the pharmaceutical industry. Those are the kind of clients that I look for and the kind of clients that I want to work with. And thankfully, we've had more wins than losses in the fact that it did work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here today. But it's hard, Chris. It's really, really, and it's soul destroying. You can put a proposal together. It makes sense. It ticks the boxes. We've had brands come to us and go, "This is what we want to do, and this is the target we want to be in." And then you go back to them with that, and they go, "Can you do it in green?" And like, no, it's this. So yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that with it. And as much as, particularly again, we're talking sort of emerging tech and things that people don't necessarily fully understand. So today that could be AI, that could be voice search, it could be this kind of stuff that's coming out that doesn't have that data-backed testing behind it. Whereas I can say, hey, I'll build you a website and I can run Facebook ads. A client gets that, they know that, they get that there's an ROI, they can kind of classify that and go, I know what I'm getting. They could get a much bigger result with AI or with voice search or something, but because it's unproven and untested to a degree, it can make it, as you say, much. They say we want the world, and you give them the world, and then there can be that tendency to kind of backtrack to, but could you do it in something that we understand? They said, could you do it in green? Could you make it more creative? Could you make it more like a print ad? Right back in the day, we were doing websites and AR, VR, that early stuff is could you make it more like something that I understand? So I think that's exactly what you're saying. That's a natural progression for a client that's sort of putting their brand on the line, and they're really that as you're saying, that relationship's integral for them, having that trust in you and trusting their brand, because a bit of damage to a major brand is not insignificant. Right, so they're literally putting a lot on the line if they're kind of testing some of this stuff, and if you mess it up, it can go pretty pear-shaped for them. So there is consideration there, right?
I remember one of my mentors early on in my career turned around and said the most profound thing. If he was still around now, I'd love to remind him of it. But he said, "No one got fired for booking a TV ad." And that's what you've just encapsulated in that whole discussion, is that the safe option to, like, now our TV ad is Facebook or a billboard or a radio spot. And I'm not knocking any of those mediums. I think they're fantastic and they're necessary mediums. You can't be a full service shop if you're not full service. But you know what? You might get fired if you booked a TV ad, because you can't track it. You can't, unless you put a QR code or a call to action with a unique identifier. So I think the most important thing here is that be innovative. Put those weird and wackies out there, because someone might bite. And if they do bite, the upside for them is pretty cool. And even if it doesn't, if when I say it doesn't do what it was supposed to, if you're working with an FMCG brand, and I don't work with a lot of FMCG brands for this one reason, they want to sell stuff. I remember dealing with one of Unilever's brands. I'm not going to name and shame. I went in with an absolutely perfect marriage, perfect category marriage. could have proven even before doing the campaign it would have worked. And they said no, because their answer was they go with the spray and stick approach. They throw dollars out at every single thing and something sticks somewhere and they get sales. And all they're interested is if they spend $1 million, they need $1.1 million back in the till. That's it. They don't care. There's no awards, there's no creativity. Throw it out there, make sure someone sees it, that they need to buy that stuff at that moment in time. And that's FMCG mentality. Generally, there are a few cool brands out there. I look more for products and brands, even services, where you can do things a little bit differently, where you can leave that personal touch. And it's not about putting the dollars in the bank. It's about them succeeding and obviously then growing and the referrals that come from that. I mean, yeah, there's really been some wacky ones that the team and I thought up over the years, and we've had some bites. But it's hard.
There's it's an interesting point. There is perhaps more of a shift towards an understanding of, there's ROI, there's cash in the bank, but there's also experiential value, there's brand value, there's a value add in doing something crazy, being a first mover in something like in new tech, to do something cool. There can be just as much value and cachet and brand building potential from doing that wacky thing. Now, again, we can track a bit more of that stuff now. Anything that's on a screen somewhere, we can track it, which you couldn't do before. But yeah, that idea of experiences being different, because that is a bit more trackable, right? We can track, and this is where I'm going to lead into next. We can sort of start to track intent. And that's something, obviously, that I know is a big concept to you. So I'd like to lead into sort of what intent means to you around data collection and that sort of thing. But do you think that that's sort of what's happening there, that because we can track more stuff, brands are more willing to try stuff that isn't necessarily proven, but they know if I can get the data, there's a value there?
Correct. And I think before you even go into intent and what it means to me, and why I've hung my hat on it for so many years, next year, well, supposedly next year, but it might be the year after, we're going to possibly lose the cookie, and a lot of people are scared about losing the cookie. It's like the people at a buffet, when the last cookie's on the table, everyone's going to grab for it. But once we lose that, do we lose our clients? And the simple answer is no, we don't, because quite honestly, if they are your clients, they're your clients for different reasons, not because you've tracked them online. So I think that's the first thing that a lot of marketers need to understand. But that being said, and as a segue into intent, so a lot of people don't really understand what intent is. When I moved to Australia, I wanted to break away from their creative agency environment. I was coming to a new country where I didn't know the rules. I didn't know the game of war as such here. And I needed to reinvent myself. So I had a business partner at the time. We put together Beyond Intent, and we still live by the word beyond intent. And what intent was for us then was the first sign of someone putting their hand up. So when you go into Google and you search, that is actually the first sign of intent. And I use Google and Facebook when I do presentations on this, and it's very simple. When someone goes onto Google, they don't lie. No one goes onto Google and goes, my phone's just lit up now with Google. No one goes into Google and says, my friend has something green growing under her toe. Now, on Facebook, they might do that because it's their social network. They don't want their colleagues to know that they've got something green growing under their toe. But they will ask the search engine the real truth. And that's intent. So, for people that are worried about losing the cookie and that, people are still going to go onto Google and do stuff. Lookalike audiences, using artificial intelligence, machine learning. There's so many little names I can throw around you and buzzwords. Google has all this information. So you might not get pinpoint accuracy, but you're still going to get that birds of a feather flock together mentality. People are still going to group and associate and consume in similar ways. So, there's no panic stations required. So what we did is we came up with an acronym called D-STAR. And we've actually just changed it. It used to be data, strategy, technology, action, results. and we've recently changed it to design strategy, technology, action, results. So the D went from data to design. And the importance of that is that if you put good work out there and you put good creative out there and a really clear, succinct call to action, that's your design. The strategy, the technology, the action, and obviously the most important part, the results, that will come as a flow, and that's the journey. And we try and help our clients see that journey. So where it starts with the design, which will ultimately then be your data, because people are going to share it, they're going to like it, they're going to comment on it, they're going to consume it. We can then build our strategy as to how we go to market, which technology to use. And it's important to also stress at that point, we're fully agnostic. There's a couple of tech tools that are have represented, but we never force those on our clients. A very good example is I use HubSpot. Personally, I'm a huge fan of HubSpot, but it might not be the right tool for everyone. Salesforce might be better, or what's the other one? Zoho might be a better option, and that's great. So we'll work with our clients with the tech that they have and have invested in. If it's really bad, I might try and give you reasons why you should change it. And I've had people come to me to say, "Can you build me a tech stack?" Which happy to do. But the thing is that technology is an integral part of anything. If you're going into market without a good MarTech or tech stack in place, chances are you're probably going to fail. And that goes back to your data. Once you've got good tech in place, you can harvest your own data. And once you've harvested your data, it's your client. You don't need cookies and all the other wonderful things, pixels, etc. So a first-person relationship, a human relationship where you actually have relationships with your clients, it's probably going to put you in good stead for 2023 and beyond.
Yeah. It's for me, it always comes back to like foundational marketing 101, basic
Correct.
principles, which I can see get lost, and they tend to get lost more today because there's so much technology, there's so much stuff you can stack on top of it and become reliant on, like cookies and tracking and retargeting and remarketing and audiences and different platforms and this and that and blah, blah, blah. There's so much stuff you can layer on top and get in the way of what is the foundational thing that we're trying to achieve. What is the principle, rather than, okay, what's the tech stack? Okay, I have to use HubSpot, but what's HubSpot actually doing? What's it trying to achieve? And you talked about search, right? Just because I can't pixel someone, if I understand basic marketing principles of intent and search, and when I come to YouTube, I'm in one mode, and when I'm on Facebook, I'm in another mode, and the context changes, and I want to be spoken to in a different way. Basic principles, right? If you can understand that stuff, then the tech becomes a way to elevate that and amplify that and do that better and have that automated. But if you're relying on the tech stuff and the stuff up here without the principles, that's why I think a lot of modern day marketers are freaking out, because they're relying on the pixel to do the work for them, rather than understanding and knowing how to, as you said, create that one-to-one human relationship.
So we've actually changed. I mean, I don't refer to myself as a CEO or a managing director. So I am the head technologist, and we refer to ourselves as marketing technologists. And there's a reason for that. If you come from foundational marketing, and let's use a car as an example. So Mercedes created the car in the 1800s. Now, the car hasn't changed. So everyone's going to say, "Oh, you're mad." Of course it's changed, but it actually hasn't. It still has four wheels and still gets you from A to B. That's what a car's job is. So when they marketed cars in the 1800s or the 1900s, they did it exactly the same way as we market today. The only difference is the tools that we have changed. So if you still take the same principles of marketing and look at technology for what it is, which is just a tool, it can't replace us. You go and you have an agency, you run an agency. When you sit down with your client, they don't say to you, "Hey, Chris, can you send a bot over? We just want to have a little AI chat with them." They call you in and they say, "Mate, we're about to launch a new product. Where do we start?" So, I think you hit the nail on the head, is that the modern day marketer, and this is it's an age thing. That's what it is. When they call me boomers and I don't know, whatever else I've been called. I'm very proud to be a boomer because you know what? When the internet switches off, I can still get from here to wherever I need to. I know how to read a map. I know how to use a compass. You know, there's kids today that go, I mean, they don't know how to spell. They don't have to. That's what my son tells me. He goes, it will autocorrect for me. Well, you know what? You can't write a strategy on a typewriter without autocorrect. So, you know, go back to the basics. I think brands would probably welcome an approach if you had to go to them and say, here's a basic, non-technical approach to how we're going to market your product. And in order to measure it, we're going to use the following tools. Or to report back on it, we're going to use the following tools. But I've said in a few presentations, because, you know, I'm kind of the agency's agency. I have quite a few direct clients, but I work with a lot of agencies. And I try and bring these types of skills and thinking to them. And, you know, I've sat in many presentations where we've run the artificial intelligence. This is the lookalike audience. You know, these are the words that we hear all day long, right? If you do this, you'll find this and you'll get 3,000 million impressions. So what? You know, I'd rather have 10 people buy my $1 million product than 10 million people see my $1 million product. And that's the different thing. You know, I've had a client turn around to me before and say, hold on a second, you want to charge me X for that? I can go and pay people to buy my product that will probably give me more money back without spending it on all this fancy tech. And that's the reality of today.
Yeah, I think that's whether it, as you say, is a generational thing or an age thing or I mean, is it, again, 2002, sort of I studied marketing and business in university in 96, 97.
4 Ps, right?
Yeah, exactly. 4 Ps. All the basics of marketing 101.
7, 9, I don't know.
Yeah, it just continues to grow. But I mean, that basic stuff, the textbook that I studied in 1997, parts of that you can scrap, but like the fundamental stuff is the same. I've got something value. You've got a problem. I've got a way to fix it. Let's talk about it.
You're talking about textbook. I can remember so clearly a picture of who was the guy that played James Bond? Pierce Brosnan doing this with the Omega on his arm. It was one of these, and that was called brand ambassador celebrity promotion. Fast forward 20 years or 25 years actually, and it's now Instagram influencer. So that's the message out there. It's the same freaking thing that we've been doing. You're just changing the name and using tech to expedite and to measure. But Pierce Brosnan sold as many Omega watches to his fans as, I don't know, Ninja or Mr. Beast does today. You know, well, Mr. Beast gives away more stuff than he sells, but
Michael Jackson sold a fair few Pepsi cans back in the day.
Correct. And what was Back to the Future? Michael J. Fox was wearing, I think, Nikes or Pumas. You know, everyone bought them. So it hasn't changed. It's just the tech
product placement, right? It's classic product placement, but now you've got people that a single person that has influence over thousands, millions, tens of millions of people. But the same principle, right? The same principle, different environment, different execution. But I think it's such an important conversation. For me, it's about thinking. It's about knowing how to think like an agency owner, knowing how to think like a marketer. Correct. Then you can stack whatever you can, particularly in today's market. Who knows what the world's going to be next year or in 5 years or in 10 years, right? Everything's volatile. Everything's pretty uncertain out there. So if you don't have, like you said, holy shit, all I've got now is a typewriter and a piece of paper and a fax machine. If I can't make sales with that, then I'm stuck.
Because you might have to explain a fax machine, mate. A lot of people don't know what that is.
I'll send you a message on your pager and we'll talk about it.
And I did that, but it hasn't changed. Instead of getting a message on a page and finding a payphone to phone back to the office, I have a phone. So yes, it's faster, it's quicker, but speed doesn't always necessarily equate to results. You know, good old fashioned sit down, think. I still work with pen and paper, even though I'm totally digital. The difference is my pen has a camera on it and it records everything and transposes it into a digital file for me. But I still write. You know, I still sit down with the basic tools, whether it's an iPad and an Apple Pencil. It's still the
Yeah.
same thing. It starts with that, a good creative director and a good creative person is going to put you in your agency so far ahead of the game. And they're not being creative because they're looking at machine learning or artificial intelligence. Yeah, that's the end result. But
yeah, that's the stuff that expands what we can do, right? It expands our reach. It makes it easier to get more things to more people. Instead, understand the intentions behind things, get the data, and then we can make better decisions. So it's all useful, and we don't want to throw anything away. But just coming back to what's the thing that you're trying to do? What is your client wanting to do? What does their customer expect? What do they want to do? What's that core thing? Now, how can we execute that using different technologies rather than, okay, well, I do Facebook ads, so Facebook ads is the answer to every question.
But you said such a key thing is, what does the customer want? So many people get this wrong, where they come up, you've got a brand or marketing manager person who's got this vision, and then the agency goes, oh, I love your vision, let's do your vision. But neither of the two have actually sat down and gone, hold on a second, the person that we're trying to market to, the customer, do they actually want this? And if you look back at the failure of brands over history, so many of them is because they never sat down and actually asked the customer. With lockdown, we've seen a resurgence of surveys. People are phoning or sending surveys and asking you to complete surveys and paying you for it. There's a lot of it. And it's so good to see that, because someone's actually asked me, what do I want? And then based on what I want, then machine learning, lookalike audiences, etc., because I've given you what I want. There's nothing worse than when you ask me what I want and then you don't give me what I want. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. So, the message out there to marketers or brand managers, that one and the same when it comes to the client side. Don't tell your agency what you want. Give them guidance. And agencies, don't go and tell your client what they should do. If the two could get in the same room and just sit down and say, what does the customer want? What does he or she want or expect from us? And then build that. And you'll probably find your success rate will go up, exponentially.
Amen to that. 100%. If you just listen to that last 3-minute clip of this episode and take away and actually stew on that and think about that, that is a major takeaway. But there's been tons of insights, I think, in this episode. And thank you so much, Brett, for dropping by. And you're obviously someone that's sort of been there, done that, and had the experience and learnt from multiple different clients and different environments and different types of product and different services. So you've got a very broad depth of knowledge. And I think having all of that, you start to connect, okay, well, actually, this is all the same thing, right? There's a principle, there's a foundation that's driving all this stuff.
Show is what every brand manager should be looking at. Thank you for having me, Chris. It's been great to chat. I can't believe how quickly time flies.
It's always fast and furious, right? When we get in a bit of flow and have a good conversation with good company, it's always good. If people do want to find out more about you, mate, and get connected with you, where are some of the best places for them to do that?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. I write a daily blog that I put up there just to try and help motivate people. So linkedin.com, well, search Brett Levy. I go under the name Fat Cat Brett. So you'll find it on Twitter as Fat Cat Brett, PH, not F. Mind you.
Pretty hot and tempting.
After COVID, maybe the F comes into play. But Fat Cat was actually my first agency.
Right.
That's where the name comes from. So I had the phone number, I had 0861 Fat Cat. So it's stuck with me.
Nice.
So if you search Fat Cat Brett or go to LinkedIn, that's probably the easiest. Always happy to chat to people, always happy to make new connections, and more importantly, to learn. So,
Awesome. As always, I'll drop all those links in the show notes so the folks at home can click on those and get connected with you. Brett's a guy that's clearly got a great depth of knowledge. He's been in this game, playing this game of war, as you said, for a long time, and he's still around. So really good guy to get connected to if you're in the agency space, which a lot of you, or most of you are. great resource to pull on and have a conversation with. I've enjoyed my conversation with you, Brett. I'm sure the folks at home have as well. Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for stopping by and listening to this episode. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.